English humour. A grind and a bump in the performing of English language humour. Part 19. The new rock and roll. In the 80s and 90s in Great Britain, comedy really did become the new rock and roll. In 1993, Newman and Baddiel played live to 12,500 people at Wembley Arena, something never before heard of. The current world record for a comedy show, by the way, is Mario Barth, a German, who pulled in almost 70,000. But he wasn't speaking English, so he's not in the book. Although Kevin Hart has since pulled 53,000 spectators into the Philadelphia Stadium in America. Still not really comedy, more like halftime at the Super Bowl. I think a nice little club with a bar, maybe 300 seats maximum, a nice stage with nothing in the way, a nice sound system. That was the kind of comedy club that was springing up in opposition to the working men's clubs and the mother-in-law jokes. No, this lot weren't Bernard Mannings by any means. They were generally anti-royalty, anti-Tory, anti-religion even, certainly anti-Thatcher. That was the ethos, and there you were, with 300 drunks expecting to be entertained, and out you step, on your own, hoping there isn't a hen night in. The compere would warm up the crowd for 10 or 15 minutes and introduce the starting act, who was often doing it for free. They would do 15 or 20 minutes, there'd be a break. Compere would come on again, do another 10 minutes. A more well-known comedian would do the second part, stretching as far as 30 minutes sometimes. And then for part three, the compere would come on and say, hello, we all had a good time, here's your headliner, and on would come the headliner. And what do they expect from an experienced comedian? This is what Wikipedia says about stand-up comedy. Audiences expect a stand-up comedian to provide a constant stream of laughs, calculated at 4 to 6 laughs per minute. And a performer is always under pressure to deliver, especially the first 2 minutes. That's very important indeed. Phyllis Diller holds the record for the most laughs per minute, by the way, though I don't know how they calculated that. She got 12. Frankie Howerd was quoted as saying, I work at 7 titters per minute. And remember, these have got to come thick and fast at the first, so you're going to need a good opener. I once saw a lad from Sunderland, and I can't remember his name, unfortunately. He came on stage, he said, as you can see, I wear glasses, and I have got a hearing aid, which he showed us. He said, so I'm a little bit deaf, a little bit blind, and I sure play a mediocre pinball. Stuart Lee mentions his favourite opener, where comedians would come onto the club and say, this club is famous on the comedy circuit because you only play it twice. Once on your way up and once on your way down. It's great to be back. I've recently heard of an opener by a comedian called Chris DeFate, who opens like this. I gotta tell you, my opener is really weak, so I'm just gonna go straight into my second joke. This, of course, has the benefit of, if no one laughs, you can say, told you. But you're into your routine now. You've got some jokes and points of view you want to share with the public. You might use shtick. Shtick is a kind of a leitmotif, I could almost say. Tommy Cooper's shtick, for example, was to pretend to be bad at magic. Some other people might put on their accent, they might play the fool, and then you've got to decide what delivery you're going to use. Hangdog, as we know, goes down very well in England, but maybe not everywhere. You might be more upbeat and loud. Are you going to use catchphrases? Well, a catchphrase really is limited to the more famous comedians, especially since TV exposure. Although Max Miller used to go on stage greeting the applause that he received with, thank you, I expected more, but... Rodney Dangerfield's catchphrase, I don't get no respect, was paradoxical, as he usually, when he said it, he did get respect in the form of applause. Here are some other catchphrases. I wonder if you know whose they are. First one is, here's another fine mess you've gotten me into. And if you said Oliver Hardy, you fell into the trap. He never said that, of course. He did say, here's another nice mess. And now for something completely different. That was Monty Python linking their sketches. Just like that was Tommy Cooper's catchphrase. Oh my God, they killed Kenny is South Park. And D apostrophe OH exclamation mark is, of course, Homer Simpson's catchphrase. Go! So you mix all those up in your set, you do your gig, as the comedians call it. You might have a routine. A routine is a sort of subset where you, I don't know, you've got a shoe shop routine, for example, or a going to the doctor's routine. What you don't want to do is walk through the set, which means you've done it so many times that it's almost automatic and it looks automatic. One of Bill Hicks's great openers was, I hope you'll excuse me as I plaster on this fake smile and plough through this shit one more time. Some comedians are gag-based, even one-liners, rapid fire. A lot of jokes rely on a technique known as pull back and reveal. It's a paraprosdokian, if you want a technical term for it. This is where the punchline makes you realise that what went before wasn't what you thought it was. I've heard two other comedians refer to this as, and then I got thrown out of Sainsbury's. You can use taglines, which are sort of afterthoughts to a punchline. Put in a jokeoid, which is something that might get a little bit of laugh, but it'll get a bigger laugh when you mention it later. Technique called callback. You might make asides, pretending to talk to somebody at your side. You might talk to the audience. A lot of comedians risk conversations. Ross Noble famously didn't even have a script. He went on and busked. Yes, we can use that expression. When you're busking it, you're just making it up as you go along. If it goes well, you might find yourself working the room, which means you respond to the hot spots and you keep people on your side. On a very good night, of course, you'll end up killing it with lots of laughter and applause, although applause, a lot of comedy club audiences lately are looking for the thing they agree with so they can clap. It's not really funny enough to get a laugh, so you get what Seth Meyers has christened clapter. Or you might get booed off. The new comedy clubs were a step up from the working men's clubs, but in some cases not that much. The legendary comedy club owner, Mal Hardy, in London, had a club called The Tunnel, which had a reputation alongside that of the Glasgow Empire back in the day, that hosted many, many, many comedians that later went on to fame, not all of whom finished their set. But the tunnel closed in 1988, and in 1991, Mal moved up to Greenwich and opened Up the Creek, yet another legendary comedy club. It was said that Mal only had one joke. I met my wife in Melbourne. I said, what are you doing here? The rest of it was nicked stuff from other comedians, clowning around, getting his cock out. He did in fact predate puppetry of the penis by some years, his signature impression being Charles de Gaulle, and was once questioned by Special Branch when he was found on the balcony outside Michael Heseltine's hotel room wearing nothing but a pair of socks and a leather coat containing £5,200 in cash and a pack of pornographic playing cards. Who would do this kind of thing? Who would own a comedy club? Who would get up in front of these people? Jimmy Carr says it's almost like a personality disorder you can do as a job. Rich Hall said there's only two jobs where people ask, how did you end up as? One's a comedian and the other one is tramp. But we seem to have been on this quest for a long time. Back in Quintilian's day, he was quoted as saying, a Roman would prefer to lose a friend rather than pass up the chance of a good joke. Cicero said, an indecency, decently put, is the thing we laugh at hardest. Lenny Bruce, my comedy is all born of tragedy. If there were no more anger or despair in the world, I'd be standing in the unemployment line next to J. Edgar Hoover. And Jerry Seinfeld, a joke is like leaping over a metaphorical canyon. Jokes tell things in too few words, in the words of Sigmund Freud. And that's how we came to know about Eddie Izzard and Lee Evans and Frankie Boyle and hundreds more whose names you won't know, but who I marvelled at. in my many, many trips to the comedy clubs. And meanwhile, on the television, the young ones had been smashing their way through the sitcom. Alexis Sale had come up flailing his arms, and Vic Reeves and Bob Mortimer had ladled a big dollop of surrealism into the television schedule. You mix all that up together, and that's the cauldron of comedy I was born into. We may never see their like again.